Hello, everybody, and welcome to the House Salt Book Club. We are we read for November, The Daughter of Dr. Moreau by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. This is supposed to be our October book, but we extended it a little bit just because of scheduling things. So we'll talk about how that shifted the rest of our schedule for December. But yes, Daughter of Dr. Moreau, Silvia Moreno-Garcia. My name is Marines. My channel is My Name is Marines. And I think I'm giving this like a 3.5 out of 5 stars.
I'm Sam from Thoughts on Tomes. You are here on my channel. And I think, like a 3 to 3.5 feels right to me. I also read this the longest ago. Did all of you finish this today?
I finished it.
Yeah.
Okay. Jordan finished it a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
Because I read it like halfway through October. So if I'm giving a blank stare at any point, it's because that book is gone from my head. I've read many things since then. So,
Jordan?
Oh, I'm Jordan from the Jordan Journals. I haven't been reading books this year, but I would give it like a middle of the road, like 2.5, maybe. I don't know. I also read this book a while ago, so I have literally no thoughts. Blank stares.
Even just like 1 month after you read it is kind of a thought in and of itself.
Yeah, that's like firmly where it's like a 3 for me, because I think I also was like, okay, I like this author, but as far as this book, like, until you guys were saying character names before we started, I don't remember characters' names. So
yeah. And hi everyone, I'm Paige. If you couldn't tell, me and Maddie are the ones who kind of postponed this because neither of us had read it recently. And I think I was thinking of a 3-star because it's a good book, but I didn't really enjoy reading it. So it might be a 2.5 by the end of this. We'll see.
Yeah, that's always the case, is that I start like at a number and by the end I'm like, half a star. Like that's the effect we have on each other.
Yeah.
Love that. So we're gonna start, and Sam kind of already alluded to this, with our experience with Silvia Moreno-Garcia, and if we've read or enjoyed or didn't enjoy any of her other works. So Sam?
Yeah, I've read Mexican Gothic and the Death God one. What's the Mayan?
Gods of Jade and Shadow.
Thank you. Yeah, I was like, I literally own it. Yes, I've read both of them, and I think I've had, with all of her books, like a similar feeling. This one's definitely my least favorite, I think, of all of them that I've read. But they don't tend to breach like a 4 for me so far, the ones I've read. I always feel like a little bit distant. Also, I think Mexican Gothic's problem for me, I read it on audiobook, and the audiobook's like not great, and she uses like the same voice for almost everyone, which made me like, blah. But the other 2 I read physically. I would like to actually go back and reread Gods of Jade and Shadow, because I think I might like it more now. But yeah, I tend to really like I know that Silvia Moreno-Garcia is like a good author. Like, I like what she like does and like her writing style, but I don't necessarily get as invested as I do with other authors' work so far.
I love Silvia Moreno-Garcia. She's really interesting to me. She's like, I would consider her one of my favorite authors currently writing, but I have a similar thing with her and like Patrick Ness, where I will read every of their book, and even if I don't love their book, I find it incredibly interesting. Like, if the book itself was not my favorite, I'd still see something there in terms of the quality of the writing. Like, I think Silvia Moreno-Garcia is one of the authors who can genre blend and switch between authors like the best of anyone like currently writing. Her writing tends to be really descriptive and evocative, so I just really, really love her. I have read Mexican Gothic, Gods of Jade and Shadow, this one, Velvet Was the Night, The Beautiful Ones, Certain Dark Things, and Signal to Noise.
Wow.
So, I think I have 2 of hers that I own that I haven't read. It might be the only 2 that I need to read, which are Untamed Shore and a collection of short stories. So again, I will read whatever she writes, and I've never rated anything lower than a 3-star. And I think The Beautiful Ones is my favorite of hers, which I gave like a 4.55 out of 5 stars. So.
Yeah, I have only ever read, like, the other one is Mexican Gothic that I've read, and I enjoyed that one more than this one, but I think it was down to genre for me. I feel like the genre of that one was more in my lane, so I enjoyed it more overall. But like you were saying, her sense of atmosphere, like from book to book, is so good that was also my favorite part of this one, and I could tell from these two books, like just how engrossed she has, like that part of her writing.
I have never read any of her books. This was the first one.
I feel like this is a bad introduction.
This happens a lot with book club books in particular for me, is that like I feel like the book is too smart for me. And it's
Jordan,
it's
no.
like
yeah, we're like, no.
It's just such like intellectual, like smart writing, and my brain doesn't always do well with intellectual smart writing. So this is the first one I've read by her, though, so I don't know if it would make me want to pick up other ones.
Yeah,
I think you would like Mexican Gothic.
Yeah, Mexican
I think Gods of Jade and Shadow is really accessible too, and it's just like Death and a Maiden sort of story. It's very adventure-like, and The Beautiful Ones is also just like historical fantasy romance. So she has like things that I think are a little bit more or less like. And I will say we'll get to this because part of like why I like the enjoyment and like the intellectually seeing what she was doing here isn't matching for me is because I wish this took like the more like tropey route with some of the romance element. Like I wanted it to be more tropey than it actually was. And it actually took like a different, like, I don't know, higher brow kind of route that I was like, boo, kiss. We'll get to that. But we'll start with characters, and we'll start with the main character, Carlota. How did you guys feel about her? If you remember, Sam.
I remember liking her. Like at the beginning, so I didn't know much going into this, although it was like a, sort of Dr. Moreau retelling-ish kind of thing. But I was like, oh, is this going to be a kid the whole time? And I was like, why is she a woman on the cover? And I was like so thrown off. And I was like, oh, there's a time jump. Okay. But what I really started to like was when there was, like, when you could look back on the hints that she was like one of the hybrids, and I was like, oh, like when I started I kind of called that. I'm sure we all sort of did. But when it started to be like, oh, she sneaks up on me and I can't hear her, and oh, she's so, feline-like and whatever, I was like, oh, interesting. So that I found like kind of cool. But yeah, I think very good portrayal of just like a sheltered young woman. Yeah. But I don't have much thoughts beyond that for her.
So. Was it a twist that she was a hybrid?
Technically,
I feel like I knew that from the beginning.
We're supposed to know. I feel like we're supposed to, like, of course. Yeah.
Okay. I was like, I feel like that wasn't a twist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we needed because it's two different perspectives in the book. It's Carlota and Montgomery. We needed that second perspective because if I was just in Carlota's perspective the entire time, it would have gotten grating because of how sheltered she is and how little she realizes is happening. And you should things are happening to her because people are coming to this place. So I enjoyed her perspective because it was interesting, like it was necessary, and that's where the romance was for the most part, because she was actually feeling things which we were not getting really from the Montgomery because we knew that wasn't going to happen. So I like his perspective for those elements that she had, but it would have been grating for sure if it was only her.
Jordan? No.
I don't know. She was fine. I didn't have any super strong feelings of her one way or the other. I also did not realize, I went into this book not knowing anything either, and so I also didn't realize there was a time jump. So yeah, I was surprised that we started the book with her as a kid, because again, on the cover she's not a kid, but I don't really have any strong feelings about her one way or the other.
Someone asked in the chat if we all physically read it or audiobook. I did the audiobook, and I think I didn't super love the voice that the narrator used for her because it was a little like breathy.
Breathy.
It was like trying to capture like the innocence and it just kind of grated after a while. And I think that probably affected a little bit of my enjoyment of the character. But also I felt like she was more than a character. This felt to me like she was more like commentary. She existed more like the sheltered young woman, like commentary on being a woman in this time. And like we saw her come into her voice and we saw her, I don't know, there was just a lot about like feminism that was like captured in this character, but I didn't feel her like a character like some of the other like Silvia Moreno-Garcia characters where I was like, love you, precious baby, like I want good things for you. I didn't have any of those feelings for her. So I think it was a mixture of just like being annoyed by the breathy voice in my ear, but also like knowing that like she was like more like a metaphor. I don't know if that makes sense.
I listened to an audiobook too, and I kept like forgetting that it was a character speaking to us and not like just a narrator telling a story, because I don't know, it kind of like the sound of it kind of lent to that.
Yeah. Makes sense.
In chat, does Paige sound like a robot to anybody else?
Is it fixed yet?
Yes.
Okay, good. I just switched what I was using.
Yeah, you were you were getting the Connor.
The Connor effect.
Usually, Connor.
Here, so.
Yeah.
Okay, we're sorted. I was gonna say, because Maddie, you made the point of like you felt like a distance because she was sort of like acting in place of feminism, and I feel like that was just my problem with all of the characters overall. It felt there was a distance with the characters in this book for me, because it felt like partly because it was sort of it's based on loosely on another story, so you knew that there were things that were brought over from that story, I assumed, and also just because of like the trope of the genre, it just felt like because it was in third person, even from the first person, it was the distance from like the realizations that people were having and just the way it was written. So that's probably why I didn't really enjoy any of the characters really.
Yeah. And there was a part of it too that I was like, okay, she's supposed to be naive or whatnot and sheltered, but there is there's a threshold for how much of that you can take before you're like, ma'am. And the thing is that even though she was like growing up into her voice or whatever and like standing up for herself towards the end, she's the whole thing with like her being in love with that one guy went on for so long that I was so annoyed. I was like, you are not in love, please stop it. So that like went on a little bit too long too, where I was kind of annoyed with her. So yeah, I feel like my experience of the book overall would have been better if it had like a stronger main character that I was actually rooting for. Whereas with her, I was like, meh, I don't know. I feel like she could have died at the end and I would have been like, the end.
Yeah, all of the, I mean, I know we'll get to all of them, but I think that is where the separation comes from for me too, kind of like what Paige was saying, is that all of them sort of feel like very archetypal. Like she's, like the naive woman, but he is like the like hardened, like manly man with feelings, and like the dad is the crazy scientist, and like the hybrids are like filling their role of like one's angry, one's sweet, like it was so the misogynists, like it was just so that I didn't really feel like we got the depth that I feel like I've gotten with other characters from her other books.
Yeah.
Even if they didn't lean into like the romance tropes that you were wanting, they leaned into like the character tropes.
Yes.
Quite a lot. Where they just like you could tell that it was based on very like archetypal characters from a classic book.
Yeah. Honestly, I think probably why I was like wanting the romance strip, because it wasn't even like, and we'll move on to Montgomery, that I liked him or that I felt any type of way about him specifically. I just wanted to feel something.
Yeah.
Maybe like if these two, that was like, things went awry, but then they got together, like maybe I'll feel something. And so when the author didn't go that route and it was just kind of like an unrequited love thing, and then he just walks away at the end, I don't know, I was like, no, I wanted something. Like give me something to hang on to, and that's kind of what I wanted. But again, like Montgomery, like he was fine. He's kind of like, he was just like kind of grumbly and like drunk most of the book. So there isn't like much to hang on to there. But what did you guys think of him?
I like him, but wanted to like him more because I did not dig their relationship because he did meet her as a child.
As a child.
Sure.
So I was like, nope, icky. Like the whole time, even though like if we would have been introduced to them without the child part at the beginning, and it would have just been like, here's their dynamic, and there's still been an age gap, but like I could have rocked with that maybe. It's like there's your two adults, and I was like, no. So yeah, I wanted to be more okay with that because I think that's the only like heart. Like the heart of the story in a lot of ways, like the part that had the most like tug at your heartstrings for me, and I couldn't because my heartstrings were like snipped off. So yeah, but I like a broody, drunk, stupid boy. Like that's fine, grown man.
Mhm.
That's okay. Like the little like the snotty, I'm gonna talk back to the rich men with my shotgun. I can get down.
You know what he's giving now that you're talking about the age gap too, which I didn't really even think
I
about.
think I know what you're gonna say.
Who does he remind me of?
Jorah from Game of Thrones, because that's what I was thinking of. I literally was gonna say that. I was gonna say he's giving Daddy Jorah. Like I was like the relationship.
Oh my God. Immediately I was
Jorah
like,
and
wait,
Dany.
he's totally Jorah.
Yes,
Better than how I
100%.
pictured him. So much better than how I pictured him. I pictured him as the guy from Tarzan.
Oh my God.
Oh.
So funny. Oh, wow. Yeah, no, I it's funny that you guys brought up Jorah because I was thinking of that like when I was reading it, but you know, it's been a hot minute. But
Well,
I was
and
like, yeah, I can't get behind this.
Yeah.
She's a young girl too. Like when he meets Dany's a young girl when Jorah meets her.
He literally
There's
is.
these
Yeah.
like overtone. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Same sort of deal. Okay. The reason I didn't even really clock the age thing is because one, the like jump, and two, I don't think we get much of them interacting until she is a woman. Like he just appears and then he's like, oh, okay. And then it's like jump, and it's like, okay. So I didn't really clock it. I just wanted
I'm surprised. I am shocked that you did not clock it. You're like, I'm just gonna ignore that to like feel it because yeah, I was fully expecting you to come in here and be like, ew, that age gap, that man, that is a child, you know, and you're like, no,
like a jaguar though. So.
Is she a kid or is she a kitten? Like who knows?
Okay. Anything else about Montgomery?
His like sad boy pining after his wife thing was also got a little tired. Like it's like he still writes letters in his head to her, and I was like, this girl didn't even like you. You didn't even like her.
No.
What are you doing?
Sure.
Yes.
So
he was entirely too down bad getting into debt back then. How much debt was he in that he was working for somebody? Like just like how he got himself into that situation. I was sort of questioning like how people would keep lending him money, etc., to get him to that point. But I guess because he was like what early 20s when he joined the house, because he was in his late 20s when we started reading. So I guess he was dumb and a teenager. Fine, whatever. Yeah. I talked myself out of it. It was a weird backstory to me. I didn't really enjoy that.
Writing letters to his ex or whatever.
Yeah.
I was like,
well, and then also his sister.
Right,
like his sister that passed away.
He's the reason that so there's a lot of like male guilt over women's lives that he's ruined, I guess. Which never really quite gets resolved.
Wasn't the hero of?
Yeah, that never really comes around in a way that's like very fulfilling as far as that arc for him.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the like thing is that like he doesn't get the girl. It's supposed to be like, I don't know. That's my guess.
Never gets the girl.
I mean, that's what you get, sir. You never get the girl. Okay. Any feelings about Dr. Moreau, which we already talked about, like filling this like very like mad scientist sort of role. But there was also something here, I think, about him as like standing in like as like the uninterested father as well. So did you have any feelings about that man?
That's it. Like it's very like, I don't know. I can like these kinds of characters because like what I would have liked more out of him was like the Night Circus, Celia's dad has like a similar vibe to Dr. Moreau, I would say, in like that kind of way. And but that character, in my opinion, has more charisma than Dr. Moreau had. And yeah, like I was just like, I don't really care. I'm not feeling like I love a like father-daughter kind of dynamic story. And I think also as we're talking about this, even though they are very, very, very different books, this is giving me like similar vibes to Babel. Like, with some of these things. Like we have this like absent father who has this like biracial bastard child and da da da. Like it's a lot of the same things that we had sort of back to back, and these characters being like archetypes and used to explore a theme, but not really a ton of like heart for them and stuff like that. So yeah, he was there being sort of like sickly and technically running the thing, and that's that.
It's weird because all of the elements were there of like trying to make him a complex character where he like truly believed in the science of what he was doing, and like maybe he cared a little bit for his daughter, but I couldn't even begin to tell you like why it didn't work, like why it didn't, like I didn't feel those things, because there was lip service paid to sort of the complexity of it all, but it ended up really feeling flat in terms of him being like a like mad scientist. Especially I think maybe towards the end where she like gets to finally read the journals, and it's like very calculated and cold, and I think that took away some of like the complexity of like, okay, this obviously he's being like you know, it's very about the experiments for him, but maybe he loved her, maybe he cared for her as a daughter or whatnot, and that just kind of gets stripped away a little bit at the end. So again, I just wanted to feel something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was the most interesting. Like I found the things that he was like meant like exploring interesting, like the way he used religion to like control the hybrids, and it's like all the things that related to him in terms of like what was happening in the situation were the most interesting parts to me. But he wasn't really like an issue as a character besides being evil and being like, I'm gonna sell my daughter like to these people so that we have money and stuff. Like he was just always choosing the worst possible like human choice was being made when he was there, and like you didn't expect anything else from him, like no twist and like he'll suddenly like support her or anything. You just knew what he was going to decide in every situation.
Yeah. I also like there's a tendency in some of Moreno-Garcia's work, which I totally understand. Like I didn't want this guy to be good at all because she she often writes like the white man coming into Mexico and like wreaking havoc. So I did like appreciate that there was some commentary there about like using you know, these people basically to like further his scientific research. So it wasn't like I wanted him to be good. I wish it weren't so flat. I wish it were a little bit more complicated or whatnot. So any feelings about the other hybrids? I couldn't even I just finished this book. I couldn't tell you any of their names.
Like there was Lupe. That's the only one I remember.
That's the only one I remember.
Lupe's the girl, right?
Yeah, the one that like had the rough relationship with her sister and whatnot.
Yeah. So like that dynamic, like her and Carlota's like back and forth a little bit, was sometimes I'm like, why are you guys even like really fighting right now? Like like that just seemed like a little like but besides that, it was like, because at the beginning when they showed them as like kids, I was like, something's off about this, like before they even said they were hybrids, and then it was like, they're hybrids, and I was like, right, Dr. Moreau, like like that was it, like and then you had him being like the sweetie bean, and then they tried to bring in some of the other hybrids too, as like, here's the old like sickly hybrids and care about them too, and I'm like, I don't know these people. So yeah, just kind of like backdrop for this being like, that's the only thing that made it like a sci-fi fantasy horror. What genre do we feel like this is?
A blend. It is like
Yeah.
It feels most of her work feels very historical when you read it.
Yes.
Like it's always got those historical settings, and it's got like pieces like this had piece of like I don't know, some sort of the uprising, the rebellion, the civil war that was happening there. So it feels like a historical. It always has like a splash of sci-fi or fantasy.
Yeah.
And then like this and Mexican Gothic were like a little horror as well. So whatever is she writing? Who knows?
Yeah. I was expecting it to be slightly more horror, like, because I would say that like, I guess this has like maybe a toe in horror, but it wasn't really that.
No.
I was expecting more too.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this would be like scary.
The intro where they like have the fetus like
Yes,
come out. That was the only scary part. Everything else was
yes. So yeah, this was more just
Yeah.
sci-fi.
Based on that, I really thought there was going to be. I forgot about that scene. I thought this was going to be like going in a completely different direction.
Yeah, a little spooky.
It was a little spooky. I liked that
spooky.
better.
Yeah.
Than like the rest of what I read. I also like kept confusing because I knew nothing about the Island of Dr. Moreau before reading this. Like confusing Dr. Moreau with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So I thought like that the dad was gonna
turn into something,
lose his mind somewhere in the like. Where is he? Where's Mr. Hyde?
Yeah, somebody in the chat said there's a lot of social commentary, strangling plot and character arcs happening in books at the moment, which is frustrating. I wonder if this is external pressure on authors. And that goes back to what you were saying in terms of like this being compared to Babel, which I think is also what happened in Babel. Like it was so concerned with like the commentary and like saying things about racism and about like translation and colonialism that it actually didn't let its characters like be characters, fully formed characters. And this also felt the same way. So like again, intellectually, I appreciate what you were trying to do, but also this is still supposed to be a novel, and I didn't feel like it quite gelled together like a novel. How did you guys feel about the pacing of this?
It was consistent to me. Like I feel like I didn't feel like anything was rushed for it. It felt like the action picked up when it needed to. When I was like flagging toward the middle, finally things started happening. But I did enjoy part 1 the most when she was a child and we were being introduced to everything. So that was my favorite section.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was again because it leaned a little bit more like horror-ish, which is what I was expecting. And just like, there was something a little bit more like, I don't know, foreboding, even though you would think that would happen more in the adult chapters. And there was also like, I don't think this needed to be any longer or any shorter. I just didn't really care about like where it was going, that like there were parts that it did feel like dragged because it is like the stuff with her and the guy that she said she was in love with.
Eduardo.
I was like, can we get to the point where he like finally betrays her and leaves her? Like he's obviously going to, like some of that part, but I think you couldn't have cut that and condensed that down anymore. So like that's not actually a pacing problem. It's just like I was slightly bored by this like obvious thing that's going to happen. Like if it would have been framed as like he might actually be a good guy, and it was like oh shock that like he's, it's like you know exactly what he's going to do.
Yes,
that
like,
was
I honestly
that's the son of the like
the guy that owns the place. Fernando.
I felt the same way. I'm going to come back to this pacing thing, but I want to talk about this fuckboy guy because I honestly like I didn't understand like what we were supposed to feel about that whole thing, because it was another thing that was like we were told basically that he was like a player, that he was like never going to really love her. And that's how I felt about him the entire time. But then you have the main character like being like, we're in love. And like, I don't know how it was trying to play it. And I didn't enjoy any of that portion of the story. But again, I guess it's just like adding more fuel to the like complaint fire of like these characters not feeling like fully fleshed out or very complex to me at all.
Yeah, and just even us having like the sex scene with them and whatever, and it's like, but we know he's a fuckboy. Like, why are we getting a sex scene? Why are we getting like a romance? Like, I don't know. Even that stuff was just like, okay, like it just dragged on again. Like, and I don't think that the author wanted us to think that it was a romance. Like, I think she knew we knew. So like, why are we doing this? You know?
And then there was part of me that was like, okay, this like I kept trying to like figure out kind of what Christopher asked in the chat about like what Moreno-Garcia was trying to say. So at one point I was like, oh, like maybe like this is like showing us her owning her sexuality and like using sex to get something, because she was like, will you give me this like my house as my wedding gift? So I was like, oh, like look at her getting spicy and like using the sexuality, especially because it felt to me like a lot of the commentary here was about like, you know, women in historical settings and about feminism and about being sort of docile versus being like wild, especially when you are showing emotions or whatnot. So I was like, good for her. But then it flipped and it was like, no, I really love him. And I was like,
right.
kind of undoes what I thought
Yeah.
you were trying to say here about her, I don't know, getting claws and like using her sexuality. Like it felt like we kept flip-flopping back and forth between
Like
what
the hybrid self.
what happened.
Yeah, and
The
I feel
other
like part of
Like the other half of her hybrid self.
Yeah, well, maybe
Yeah.
that's what it was meant to be, is like her going back and forth between like the jaguar and the human or whatnot.
Yeah.
And I feel like another part of like the intellectualism question, like it was talking about eugenics, like using people of a specific society in order to further science for people's like benefits was
Mhm.
like the main thing I think it was talking about specifically, which was like an interesting way to do it for sure. I love when they take like real life things and put it in fantasy settings. But yeah, that was the thing that I took most away from.
And the thing is too is like when someone has a larger body of work like she does, and I don't know what she does with her other books that I haven't read, but like she did eugenics with Mexican Gothic, and not that you can't do it again, but I was like, girl, you did this and it was like better over here. Like I don't know, you know, like, so that was just yeah, it just feels like it just again didn't quite meet the mark for some of this, because even the eugenics conversation was like there, but not saying anything necessarily new. Not that it has to, like we all just know like eugenics is bad, but like, you know, it wasn't really doing anything more with like this story and using that that classic story to tell something different.
Isn't that like part of like the whole story of the Island Dr. Moreau too? Like, aren't those similar themes from that book too?
Yeah, well, I don't really. I mean, I don't know, because
I did a very quick Wikipedia search before this, so I
yeah,
looked
I think just like the this dude creating horrible things out in the middle of nowhere is like just the vibe of, cause it's H.G. Wells or something, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I think that though, like what you're saying is what Moreno-Garcia does with her work, is usually take like, she's like taking genres and she's taking tropes and she's taking stories that are typically very whitewashed or, you know, prevalent in terms of white stories and authors, and setting them in Mexico and talking a lot about racism and colonialism and, you know, things like eugenics. And that is like prevalent through all her stories. Like that is what she's doing. That is the
That's her thing.
Yeah, that's her thing. Is that now she's taken the story of Dr. Moreau, but she's like placed it in the setting and she's going to use it to make this commentary. But I do hear what you're saying in terms of like what commentary exactly, other than like eugenics bad. Like I don't know that message was entirely clear here, but I do appreciate, like, again, intellectually, the idea of taking these hybrids and like putting them in for the way that white people have viewed, you know, indigenous people, Mexican people in general, you know, so that like that was there. The feminism stuff I think was there. The characterization was not there. And that's kind of where this lost me. I want to kind of go back to the pacing, because I'm surprised that you all said that it was like fine for you, because I thought it was
No,
really...
I didn't say that.
Jordan. I thought it was slow.
Me too. I thought it was really slow.
Yeah. Velvet Was the Night was also pretty slow, and it was like kind of had the same vibe where it's like meandering. But I thought Velvet Was the Night did a better job like getting us into the heads of the characters. Like it was very character driven. But this was slow, but not, so this wasn't like super plot driven, but it also wasn't character driven. So it was just like not driven. We weren't going anywhere.
It was, yeah. So like the social commentary took over for the characterization, and so yeah, I thought it was very slow.
I did too.
I mean, I guess I thought it was slow, but I just assumed that.
But
I
like
was
slow
bored.
Consistently, yeah, it was.
Yes, and I just like assumed that I was like. I just assumed that maybe that was a me thing and not the book thing. But good, I mean, good to know it was just the book thing.
Yeah.
I don't know that I have any thoughts. I just thought about this. I just thought about the fact that I have no thoughts about it. Usually I'm like her writing, I think, is really descriptive and like in different ways in her work. So like Signal to Noise, it's all about like music, and Gods of Jade and Shadow, it's like all about color. So things like that. Velvet Was the Night was really deep in their like personal, like their narrative voice. Like we got so many of their thoughts, like a running commentary. So that was really descriptive. I don't feel like I have, maybe I need more time since I just finished this book to process, but I don't know that I'm walking away with like a sense of like what was descriptive here. I kind of
For
got many
me,
pictures, but
yeah, I think it was the descriptions of like the setting specifically.
Yeah.
Like the place was so solid. Like I could picture it, and I will probably remember that setting. And it felt sort of like someone mentioned Frankenstein. That was the energy I was getting from like the style of the way she was writing. So I felt like that was like the most like the descriptions of the setting was the like strongest part of this for me, and that's what I was really taking because it was similar with Mexican Gothic, where you could really picture the setting.
and,
So
like
like I noticed like that.
like
Yeah.
the fog of like that's
Yes.
The sense of place was like
yes.
perfect.
Yes. Yeah, those were the pictures I was getting mostly was like
Mhm.
of the island itself.
Like the cenote and stuff, like that was
Yes,
so
yes, when they were
yeah.
in the swimming and all that, I was like
Yeah.
picturing it in my head. And some of her outfits too, when it was like describing like her robes and stuff like that,
Mhm.
her long black hair and stuff like that. You're right. It's all like I just needed processing time.
You need to say it out loud.
Yeah. So I already referenced my displeasure with the end, but how did you guys feel with like the ending? And somebody just said they hated the fight scenes, which mostly also happened at the end, like all of the like sort of action ramps up at the end. Any thoughts about like how this ended and any of that action that was going on?
Could not tell you how this book ended. I mean, you guys did tell me before we signed on, so I remembered. Still don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, no thoughts. Yeah, just fine. I mean, I think there was probably things about the ending that were supposed to, again, tug on your heartstrings.
I think it was just also predictable. Like you knew what was going to happen. That by the time we were like toward the ending, I was like, okay, just get me through these chapters because I know how it's going to end, and I need to finish this book. So just get me through.
Yeah.
So I wasn't surprised by anything. I knew Montgomery and her weren't going to end up together, even though I was like, I need a shred of romance.
Yes.
And I knew like that everything was going to work out for her because that's just generally how these stories kind of end. There's an open but hopeful note. I feel like for the two that I've read, but yeah, I wasn't surprised by anything. So it felt that's the point where it dragged for me because I was like, I need to finish this. I have an hour and a half left to listen to. Please just get me through it.
I did also like there was a moment where she's like, just let the rage consume me. And she went like full animal basically that felt like tropey and predictable to me as well. Even not only for like the character, but in sort of the social commentary of like letting the woman feel her feelings or whatever. That I was kind of like, meh, meh, okay. Like here's where we ended up. Jordan. No.
Jordan's like vibes.
You remember the end, or is it like wiped from the memory?
It's wiped. It's wiped from the memory. I know you guys said like Sam said mentioned it before we started, but that was all that is the only thing I remember is the little snippet that you guys shared.
She-Hulk mode, someone said. Christopher says, I noticed in this book compared to other SMG books, the heroines usually want to escape their mundane life. Well, in this book, that didn't happen until the end of the book. Yeah, I did like that she was like, what do you mean?
I did like that she wanted to stay.
Yeah, like, this is the best place ever.
Yeah, I love that.
Which, is supposed to be a little bit about her being naive or whatnot, but I do like that she had like a sense of like home and family and like wanting to stay where she was, so that was cool. I do wish she had focused on a single line of commentary and had more fun. I wanted the main character to have more agency outside of her kitty moment. The doctor to unhinge and Montgomery to get hives. But yes, the general sense of everyone just doing a little bit more would have been great as well. I think that's kind of like my fix-it to this fic. I'm not gonna even go the romance angle, okay? They don't have to end up together. My fix-it to this fic would be like basically just that. Like we got maybe a little bit more time, or maybe you just put this like instead of in third person, you still have the like dual narration, but it's in first person. So we get a better sense of like the characters and their thoughts and what they're actually going through. That's my fix.
Yeah, I agree. First person would have probably changed it for me and like bumped it up a little bit.
Yes. All right. Look,
I agree.
You made it 20 minutes. I thought we were going to make it to 20, baby.
We always say that.
Any final thoughts on this book? Does anyone want to change their rating?
It's a 3 for me.
Yeah, I'll keep it at 3.
Like I don't think it can be below a 3 because I just don't think I think her writing quality is above a 3. It's just like whatever. Like for my 2 stars, I'm usually mad, and like I'm not mad at this. It's just like not. It has a lot of flaws. Yeah. I'm not mad about it.
Yeah, I think.
A very common, like, thinking back on previous live shows, like a very common thing for books this year is that we wanted just like a little bit more of things.
Yeah.
So with this reading year has just been all elves. It's been all elves.
There's been a few. Speaking of that, next month will be not only us doing our live show for Bloodmarked by Tracy Deonne, woo, our first ever sequel to Legendborn, but we will also be doing what we did last year, which was the wrap up of everyone's thoughts. I will do a compilation of everyone's ratings and who was rating things highest and lowest. Mari, we're going with the ones that you said in the live show.
I object to this totally, because then you're like, Mari, your ratings, and also you catch me 5 seconds after I read the book.
What is that?
Okay, we're still in that.
It is not. I catch me 5 seconds. I need it.
Okay, Mari,
So wait,
I love that.
Rating...
I love that for you. However, you also haven't been putting your ratings anywhere online. So, girly pop, I only have this to go off of.
No, you gotta ask this. We gotta do a survey.
Survey.
Are your ratings going down after we leave the live show?
Yes, they are.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
how do you rate me? Where I just say like,
well, this year is the first year that you've been doing the like blah. So I haven't even gotten there yet. So what I'll do is I'll do according to the live show ratings, and then if they've changed, and then I'll do live math.
Okay, you can do according to the live show, but you have to take the rating from the end of our live show because we all changed at the end. You rating.
So I always do it for the end.
Beginning of live, end of live. No.
No. I always do it based on the end, like whatever the final rating was from the live show.
Okay.
It's always that.
But then this one is a 3-star. I bumped it down from 3.5.
Okay, perfect. So future me, when I'm watching this, I will have gotten that. So we'll do that, and then we'll do, so according to like the live moment, here's where everyone sits, and then we'll see, because I do think that'll be some fun stats for you, Mari, of now Mari with time, specifically. What does Mari think? Does anyone else want to have theirs? Does anyone move their ratings around enough to
I don't think about these books after. Okay. I don't remember. I was like, is this the year we read Ice Planet Barbarian? Because
I think I rated every single book this year for book club the same. So
this was a bad year.
Every single book
it was a bad year.
2.5 or 3 stars. I haven't liked anything we've read, so I'm not confident that like.
I see everyone being like Delta Mari, whatever. I sound convoluted. This happens to me with I literally just posted a video today talking about like 5 recently read books, and all of them are. I was like, I rated this when I finished reading, but it's actually this. I do.
You gotta let it simmer. I am looking back at all of our. We liked like First Sister. We liked Book Lovers.
We did like First Sister.
Make it to Book Lovers. I read Book Lovers, but I didn't make it to that live show.
You didn't.
I liked Babel, so I've liked 3 of the books we've read so far this year.
Yeah, we've just had a lot of like. This year hasn't been a bad year. It's just been a lot of like conflicting thoughts of like middling books, and a few bad ones.
Also, though, like a lot of disappointment, because I feel like in the past we've read bad books, but we were like, this is gonna be bad. But this year, I feel like we picked a bunch of books where we're gonna be like, this is gonna be good.
We were so hopeful.
We tried because last year, we had a bad year last year.
We just need to not try. We just need to Hail Mary all of our books.
No, what we need to do is every month someone recommends a book, and we just read whatever the person recommends instead of us trying to find a common ground book. Because that would be fucking spicy. I think that's
I like that idea.
That would be hilarious.
I mean, what Mari and I didn't tell you is while we were in Dublin, we planned most of next year's book club. So
y'all, we need at least a couple literary books.
I need less thinking books.
That's fair. I don't even know what our ratings potentially are. We'll talk about this off live. I have a list. I think.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, we got to start Hail Marrying. Maybe we need to start taking suggestions from the chat. Like this is
Yes,
the book you
that
get
would be
next
good.
month.
Yeah.
I will
Like-
also say this was a really weird reading year for me personally, like in
Valid.
general.
Same.
Like as you said, I'm
Same.
not tracking my reading. Like I'm barely on Goodreads these days, which is really weird for me. I've just been all over the place with my reading mood. So that probably didn't help.
Sure.
But also, this is not a me problem. These books were not great.
Yes. Yes, this was not us. I think we'll talk about this again. This will be a nice segue into next month. I think 2022 was a really weird release year, and
Yeah.
just like a really like I had a pretty decent reading year myself, but I was reading backlist.
Yeah.
Like so, I know that we haven't read a ton of like new releases, but like it was just like a weird year for like releases and books in general. I haven't heard like enthusiastic. This was the best reading year ever from like anybody. So
Yeah.
we'll see what all the end of the year wrap ups have to say, but.
They're all
And
going
they
to
were all
put
for book club.
Fable as number one.
Yeah, I know.
Yes. Yes, I will.
On like Earth of
I
whatever. Earth of whatever. Sarah J. Maas.
Oh, they're stupid ass titles. Have you read it yet, Jordan?
The second one.
I haven't finished aside from this book, since like August.
Oh, yeah.
Jordan, we love you for hanging in there.
Yes.
Right now it's just like it's this trio.
It's just the three of us.
Buddy Page, and then Jordan is there sometimes, and we're like, Jordan, yes.
And she's like, I actually have forgotten how to read, but I'm here.
Yeah. Like I love the commitment to the book club
We love you so
Mhm.
much.
deeply, deeply. Thank you, Jordan, for being here. All right.
Anything else? Any final thoughts? Someone's currently on page 255 of Babel, and oof.
I will not take any slander.
We love the Jordan cameos.
We do. We do.
Sometimes we get a Connor cameo.
Right.
Let's
Let's
see,
see if
what's going on.
everyone manifests for the last one. Kayla and Jordan. And
Oh, Bloodmarked is the
Connor.
only book I picked this year.
All
I'm gonna
six.
show up.
Yes.
It's the only book I picked. At the beginning of the year, I was like, if we read anything, can we please read Bloodmarked? And you guys were like,
Bloodmarked.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And it's only happening so late because it only came out last month.
It
Right.
got pushed
Yeah.
so much.
It
this
got
year.
pushed.
It was like
Yeah,
supposed
so
to be
much.
earlier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is anyone going to reread the first one?
No.
I think I'll watch
I know
our live
myself.
show.
Watch our live.
Yeah.
Watch our live show.
Nice.
I
I'm
love
going to reread it for a Tome Topple.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna
But-
reread it too. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll read
It'll
that
be
the day before the live show. This on the day of the live show.
Oh, the live show.
Jesus
Oh.
Christ.
Girl. Christopher said to just send everyone a Google survey document
That's
for
what I
this
said.
rating.
Send a survey. That's the most accurate rating.
Okay. Oh, maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do that
Glad
before.
you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, Madi, you're the only one that's going to get a survey because no one else changes their ratings.
Yes.
So it's just you.
Jordan didn't
Remember what
even
we
give
read this-
ratings half the time. She needs to fill it out.
Oh, okay, you and Jordan. She has a one too.
I was trying to write a review for the first sister, like a week after I finished it, and it just has like the title and then and that's it because I couldn't think of anything.
No thoughts, just vibes. What if
No
all
thoughts.
next year we just have Jordan pick all of our book picks?
Yes, the year.
Yeah.
The Jordan year, the year of Jordan.
That's the year we
Jordan's
finally
no.
read a Sarah J. Maas book.
Right, Jordan. I think that could be a possibility. I think we might.
Sword
be
of Glass,
fine.
let's do it, please. I've never read them.
Mhm.
I
I
think
would reread that.
Think of the
Maddie's like,
discussion we could have. Think of the discussion we could have.
Oh my god! I don't know if the internet's ready.
I don't know if they are. I want people to like me.
On that note,
All right.
that is the end for this.
So much for joining us this month. As we mentioned, Bloodmarked for December, which we are already in. And as always, we will announce time and place and all of that. And until then, we will see you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.